Now, we will start talking about, the pain points of workflows and, not having them and how they resolve, at least the ones that TaxDome have available for you, how they resolve some issues. Um, we'll talk about optimizing pipelines that you have already built. We'll do a little hyper focus again on conditional automations. We touched on them kind of superficially and, generally on the last webinars, but we'll talk about them a little bit deeper. Role-based automations will, since this is a new feature, we want to make sure that that is understood and making sure that tasks are assigned correctly, and automating statuses. So we'll talk about that as well and cover as much as we can today. All right, so let's get started here. Long time user pain points. What automation issues do firms face on a regular basis? Um, not keeping track correctly of clients is really a big issue that comes up, right? And the way that TaxDome sets up the pipeline is really easy to track all of your clients, right? For example, I had specifically a handful of clients last year that I onboarded that mentioned, because I didn't have, this pipeline tracking each client, there was scenarios in which the client walked away with a free tax return because I didn't build them. I didn't have that structure that I needed to correctly follow through. So there's clients that fall through the cracks, and that's what you don't want, right? So that really will never happen because you can see exactly where a client is in your pipeline in TaxDome. So it's kind of like almost impossible for that to happen, right? You can see if the client is billed or not billed and which stage they're on. And, often, if you don't have that kind of structure, then there will be, some bottlenecks there. Your team's not going to be able to track things correctly and so on. Also, before I continue, by the way, you will see some pop-up offers, okay, throughout if you're here joining us live. So please take a look at that. If you're new to TaxDome, if you're thinking of joining, I will have some links there for you. And also later on, we'll have some pop-ups asking how you are seeing the information, if it's clear for you. Also at the end, we'll have a survey. Hopefully you give us some feedback on how we did. All right. So talking about the pain points, if Emilio and, you have something to add about your experience, because I know you have a lot of experience with clients that, um, have some pain points and come up with some bottlenecks, especially if they already have their, pipeline set up that, you know, that things come up.
Yeah.
Everything's not perfect at the beginning.
Yes, one of the most common pain points that sometimes we forget when we're building the pipelines is how do we handle the clients that are not logging into TaxZone for whatever reason. Sometimes we just assume that everyone will be joining TaxZone and they will be able to log into the portal, but there's people that may not be very tech savvy, or they could just struggle for some whatever reason. And when we build the pipeline, sometimes we forget to handle what we call the offline clients. So if you're building a pipeline, it's always very good to consider that you will have both of those clients. So we'll need to do conditional automations to, send an organizer to the ones that are going to be logging in, but also create a task for those that are going to be dropping their organizer or signing the engagement letter in your office. So that way you will be able to have all of your clients in the pipeline, either if they connect or not connect to TaxDome, because sometimes we forget for those that are not logging in, and you may have like an Excel file there on your firm, and we don't want that. We don't want to have everything just in different places. We want to have in one place. And whenever you start building those pipelines, start thinking about those scenarios that could come up.
I can agree with you more. That's something that always comes up. What about my paper-based clients? And a little bit later on, Emilia will deep dive a little more into, you know, using tags to be able to identify and trigger exactly what he mentioned. So maybe you can show us a little bit more of how that could potentially work, Emilio, because that's definitely, all firms have a percentage of clients that are just not willing to use technology for whatever reason, and that's okay. You can still track that client and be on top of their process in TaxDome. It's not going to it's going to hinder the digital process, right? They won't necessarily sign something digitally, but at least your team can keep track of them regardless, and they'll never fall through the cracks either, right? All right. So, Katie, let me know if you have any, feedback on this because, from your perspective, I'm sure there's like a million things that can come up, especially
I mean,
when you have a lot of
a
clients
million
to
and
deal with.
one. Yeah, so one of the biggest ones is clients not following through on finishing things. They're
Mm,
really good at starting organizers. Um, they'll start uploading their documents. They'll start to respond to client requests or client tasks. They won't finish. Um, they'll, do start doing stuff right away, and then it's like, okay, well, I have to go find a document or whatever, and they'll stop and they just forget to get back to it. Everybody gets busy. Reminders, auto reminders are fantastic because you don't have to go chasing the clients on your own, at least, for a little while. Um, TaxDome automatically will remind them however many times you set and however often you set it, and you don't have to constantly be on the client saying, hey, we need this, hey, we need this. TaxDome does it for you, and it is so helpful. um, just you can basically sit back and relax and be like, TaxDome's got this, and kind of move on. And then something we'll discuss later is going to be job statuses, and those will also help where what exactly is going on, without having a whole bunch of extra stages in your workflow. Um, and so that will also help kind of keep things clean. And while you are waiting for clients to finish things or finish uploading their documents, you're waiting, for a document or two. You can put these statuses on instead of having to move to a whole separate stage. And it will help just kind of keep everything organized and clean and just easier to follow along. So, TaxDome has some great things that help you stay organized and not have to do extra work of trying to get this information.
yeah, I agree with you. I think, those reminders are just lifesavers. Although you can poke the client yourself at any moment via chat, via email, whatever. If you are handling 300 clients this week because you're during peak season, you might not have time to, run around behind some clients that are a little bit slow. The reminders will do that for you. So it just time saver and automatically reminding your clients without you having to run around and trying to go backtrack and see who am I missing, right? Where are they stuck? Well, you have your pipeline. You have that nice view of what is going on with every client. So thank you both for your feedback. I'm sure everybody that's watching can relate. And not only that, but there's so much more that can happen, right? And we want to mitigate that at all times. All right, so let's talk about optimizing pipelines. So I'm going to share my screen, and this way,
So we have a question on how to handle
yeah.
notes for the reviewer. My recommendation is to put those notes on your job card, um, because it's a job card is everything related to that job. So if it's you're doing tax preparation, it's like your manila folder, so you keep everything in one place. So you can put it in the description, or you can put it lower as a comment. um, if you want to put it as a note just on their account, you can also link that, but I find that using just the job card itself is the um, easiest way to handle those types of notes.
Yeah, those notes definitely will stay, you know, where you want them to be. For example, if you add a note in the description, I'm going to click save and exit here. That note will be visible in your job card. Remember, if you edited the option, so if you click on edit and you go to settings on your pipeline, the job card fields are going to be important. If you want that small note that I added just now to be visible, you want to toggle on the description um, field. And that way, when you go back to pipeline, notice that always go to this button here to toggle back and forth. Okay. So looking at my uh, view here, that's the note. And if it's important for you and the team to see this note, uh, by all means, add the notes in the description section, right in here. Um, None of this is visible by your client. That's a question that gets asked over and over again, okay? Your client can only see a client-facing status, okay? And your client can only see their account name and anything else they need to do. If they need to sign an engagement letter and or if they need to, approve something, whatever it may be that they need an action on, that's the only thing they can see. So none of these tags are visible, none of these due dates or description notes or comments or notes that you add on the actual account are ever going to be visible to your client. Okay, so don't worry about that. Um, Again, it's a common question. So you can add, description notes here that are, kind of frank and forward. Like this is client's difficult, right? This client's rude, and we need to tread, with careful demeanor. So whatever it may be, feel free to add the information that you need. So it's easy for your team to manage. So it's, if you are a solo firm and you're only doing this yourself, like it's good reminders for yourself, right? So you don't forget what's going on with that particular client. That's a good question. Thanks for bringing that up. Okay, so I want to first of all just do a quick difference here. I talked about this before, right? But when you go to pipelines here, remember you can always create a pipeline or grab one from the marketplace. If I click on marketplace, then we have a lot of free ones. You see get free, right? So get as many as you'd like and then kind of test them and build upon them. I always suggest to grab one that's already created for you. Usually this is a nice one to grab and then you can manipulate it, right? So if I go back to my pipeline and take a look at this one, um, this is already kind of built out for me. All I have to do is probably change some of these items here. So if you're creating it from scratch or modifying something that exists, it's pretty much the same thing. It's just nice to see something that's pre-structured, right? And a lot of you probably did manipulate something that's pre-structured. Maybe you did create something from scratch. The nice thing about grabbing one from the market or purchasing one is that it's pretty much structured for you already. The only thing you have to do is come in here and maybe rename some of these stages and maybe change the templates that are by default here, right? So for example, by default, when you download a template, this is going to have just like a generic template. But you want to make sure that you create the right template. You title it correctly and you select the one that you'd like. Okay. Um, Common thing that happens when you test a pipeline is that when you add your test account, you will notice that you probably got the wrong engagement letter. Maybe it was meant for businesses and you got one for a personal, uh, return or a personal service that you're providing. So always make sure that you select the right items that need to go out to the client, right? And also the tags, but I'll have Emilio talk about the tags shortly so that everybody understands, the complexity of it and how deep you can get in, managing your pipeline with these. But as far as testing goes, which we'll talk about more tomorrow, we've talked about it in the essentials, right? But we want to keep talking about testing to make sure that everything happens as you need it to happen. All right. So another common pitfall that I always get when I test with clients, when I build with clients, one-on-one, is that when a task gets generated, because let's say we clear up what engagement letter needs to be sent, perfect. What proposal, what organizer needs to be sent, right? If I want a chat message to be sent out, which one should it be? If I want an email to be emailed out, which one should it be? Usually that takes time creating these templates, but once you're done with that, you're good. You just need to assign your team members things to do so they can complete the process, right? So again, you're standardizing your process so that you can do it over and over again with many, many clients. So as you standardize a process, you want to make sure that tasks are assigned to the right individuals. Okay. So if this task that I created is already predetermined to go to somebody, great. And how can I know that? Then I would open this specific task. Okay. So this specific task, I called it 1040 prepare. So if I click on new template, it's simply going to take me, oops, it's simply going to take me to the create a new task section. I don't want to create a new task. It's just going to nicely take me there so that I do not lose my place. So it's open up a new tab and I can close this in a second. All right, so I look for 1040 prepare, right? I have lots and lots of tasks, but I want to look for the one that specifically I'm working on. Remember, if you see a check mark next to a task and you click on it, it'll show you what pipelines this task is being utilized in. So I actually have two pipelines that this same task is being reutilized in. So you can create a task and have it be part of many pipelines, which is nice, right? Because maybe it's a standard process that needs to happen in corporate tax returns and individual tax returns, right? All right, so 1040 prepare. Let's get that open. Let's give it a second. All right, so now that we have the task open, remember we have the assignee section. The assignee section is for you to determine who this is for. And we talked about roles, but I'm going to talk about them again so everybody understands, how roles work. But if I want a specific team member to always take care of this, maybe Catherine's my only preparer and she's the only, we're a team of three and she's the only one that does this no matter what, then I'll add her name here. Doesn't matter which account, it belongs to her. But if I have a huge team, then, I might want to use roles because, Mark might be a preparer for 40 accounts, and then Rosie over there might have 60 accounts, and they're both preparers. And whenever this stage hits, I want it to go to the right person in the team. right? So that's why we have our roles. And whoever is a preparer on whatever account is added, then they're the ones who are supposed to determine the completion of this task. Okay. Again, team members, if you are a solo firm, I suggest that you add your name on here, or you're always going to be the job assignee, because when you have a job assignee, I'm going to come back and share my other screen. If you are a solo practitioner and you're the only one, then you want to toggle this on called assign task to job assignee, because this task, no matter what, it's going to go to whoever is assigned to the job. Remember, every time you create a job, you have to assign the job to somebody. And in this case, you don't have to worry about any assignment. So when you toggle this on, it'll override any assignment, at least for this stage, for this pipeline, right? Maybe in another pipeline, this does belong to my preparers, but in this one, whoever is assigned to the job is going to be taking care of this task. Okay. And again, we'll do some testing tomorrow to see, how do I know it's going to the right person and how do I fix it? You'll fix it by doing what I just did, making sure it's assigned to the right person. But just FYI, this is what you are going to look at. Now, because I want to deep dive just a little bit more on roles, I'm going to go to clients and I'm going to open up, one of my accounts here. If you remember, if you were here for the Essentials Bootcamp, we created these roles. These roles didn't exist. They don't exist in TaxDome. You create them because your business works how your business works. It might be different from other businesses. You might have an admin, you might have a bookkeeper or not. You might only offer services for returns, right? And you might only have a preparer. So this is nice to predetermine who is going to be taking the role of preparer or admin or reviewer or manager, whatever you want to call this is up to you, these titles. And when you click on new role, you can on the fly add new roles. Now there is a section in settings, teams and plans, and there's a tab up here called roles. So here you can further edit, rename some of the existing roles, delete them if you need to delete them. And by the way, I love that TaxDome says type and delete, because I want to know that you're sure. There's so many times that we've had clients accidentally delete something, and we put this in place just to make triple sure that you want to delete something. So that's, it's happened before, trust me. So FYI, the roles are really, really, really important. And I want to ask, it could be Katie or Emilio, have you worked with big firms that when we didn't have this, this probably would have saved their saved their life?
Oh
This
yeah,
feature,
absolutely.
this feature just recently was added, and I love it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So a lot of firms out there, and you know who you are, but you used to have this stage where, let's just say that it's called in prep, and you had to create tags for the preparer. So you could have like Fabiola preparer, Katie preparer, Emilio preparer, and you used to create 3 tasks for each one of your preparers that will be assigned to that task. And then for the reviewer, you could have another, again, Emilio reviewer, Fabiola reviewer, Katie reviewer.
Yeah.
And the thing is that you will have this clutter of conditional tasks that will be triggered based on the account tag that the account has. But sometimes you may have forgotten to update the account tag, and that will always cause problems. And if we used to have roles before, you will only create just one task, and that task will be assigned to the preparer, to the reviewer, to the data entry. So it's a huge lifesaver.
Absolutely. I think, and I've created that before with clients too, where it can get a little bit messy, right? So you would, add conditions on here, and maybe this is for Arissa because she is a preparer. But then you would multiply this many, many times, and send it to a different preparer, because let's create a task here, and then this would belong to, I don't know, Regina, and you can create these tags for sure, and you can do something like this anyway, which is really nice for specific things that you want to do. But assigning things with roles is just much easier to do, because you could do it in bulk. Okay. And doing it in bulk is really nice. For example, and I'm gonna cancel that out. If you select all of these accounts, you might have 1,000, you might have 3,000 clients. So you can, do a quick filter. I'm going to do my 1040s, right? All of my 1040s have a preparer, obviously. So I'll select all of them. I have 17. And then I'll go to more actions and manage roles. And since Catherine here, she's my preparer for every one of these accounts, then I'm going to add her as a preparer. So if I click on save, once you see this upper right hand kind of message complete, then you can open up any one of these. And if I click on info, preparer should be in here. Is this my 1040? That's right. So she's a preparer, and she has automatically been applied to all of these accounts that have 1040. If I open up any one of them, click on, because I didn't have any roles on some of these, by the way. The preparer is Catherine. So if you want to change that, you can on the fly, go back to your accounts, use the filter, that 1040, and I want to change that. More actions, manage roles. And maybe Catherine doesn't work with me anymore, right? I'm going to clear all roles and assign them to Regina. She's my reviewer and my preparer, for example. Yes, I want to change for all. And that's how easy it is. You don't have to, whether it's 3,000 accounts or like 10, or in my case, 17, you can in bulk change it on the fly. And that way you don't have to worry about, you know, assigning something in a pipeline, because it's already predetermined for you. You already set that up in your you know, task template. So it's like set it and forget it. What takes time is setting up your actual pipeline, right? It takes a little bit of time and effort. I'm going to be honest with you. It's not something that, you can do overnight, because it depends on your business, depends on how big your team is, whether you're a solo firm or a team of 15. You want to make sure that all of this is set up correctly, so that when it's go time, you don't have to worry about anything else, right? All right. So any questions right now on roles? Let me see. Let me look up one of these questions.
While you look for one,
Yeah.
Fabiola, there is a very common question that firms could be, telling themselves. It could be like, if I already have my pipeline set up, why would I change it to roles? And I have a really, really clear example of why you should do it. So two of my firms, and knock on wood here, a lot of their staff resigned before tax season, and they had everything set up with tax and multiple templates. So based of this, they had to redo the whole pipeline, change the task, change the tax, change everything. And if they had it before with roles, they will just simply go reassign the roles to the new person that is going in, and it will be such a simpler transition.
Yes, absolutely. Because, yeah, before you could have, had a tag here, and you can still have it, a tag for your team member, right? If all of these belong to, let's say here, I think I have somebody's name on here. Sorry, I saw Arissa here, right? So before, this was kind of like the thing you had, you would maybe tag an account that belonged to your, Arissa. And now that specific team member is no longer here with us, then, here's her name, right? Still, it's still easy. You look up a tag by Arissa here. And which ones belong to that team member? Well, these, right? And you can delete that tag, and then you can assign that role to one of your new team members. Really easy to do really quickly. Again, especially if you have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of clients, or even thousands of clients, right? So yeah, thank you so much for that input there. Super important to, you know, consider consider that for sure. All right. Yeah. And I was looking up at some questions. I think we answered them because we actually are demoing how to manipulate, and hopefully we answered your question on how you assign roles and what are they good for, right? Again, you can manipulate these roles as you wish, right? Again, roles under team and plans. And if you don't need the admin because you don't really have an admin person, then you can delete that and just keep these really basic roles. When you might have payrolling, you might want to add a payrolling role. Again, depends on what you feel is adequate for you and how maybe you want to trigger tasks to be completed in your pipeline. All right. So there's more things to cover. Okay. We want to elevate our pipeline by adding the correct items. Right now, we need to cover a little bit more on, how, oops, sorry, this didn't mean to open this. We need to open how conditions work a little more, and Emilio is going to take over that in a second. And we also need to cover a little bit more on how statuses will work for you, because statuses is going to be such a game changer. Doesn't matter what stage your client is on. The status changes that are right up here are going to be really, really helpful to you, and Katie's going to demo some of that for you now. So I'm going to hand the mic over to Emilio so he can showcase a little bit more of what we were talking about, getting more complexity into the tags, the conditions, because remember, you can use conditions for a whole stage or for just that one specific stage. And that's always going to be in the edit section when we edit, right? So again, I know I go back and forth, but this is under the hood. If you click on the right button, this is the view where your clients are sitting. And again, you can click on edit and then go back to pipeline, and that's how you can go back and forth. There's a lot of confusion of going to workflow here and going to template here. So just remember this nice, sweet shortcut that is really, really helpful. So when you have a pipeline and you're like, this is not what I want to look at, remember, just hit edit and go under the hood and edit stuff. And now if you want to go back, then you go to pipeline again and see the client view of where they sit, right? All right, so I'll hand the mic over to Emilio so that you can give us some really neat feedback on conditions. So take it away.
Okay, so yes, like Fabiola mentioned, I wanted to take you under the hood of a pipeline where I added a lot of conditional automations, and you will be able to see that I have conditional automations with one tag, but also with two tags. And let's go over together with the first stage. So, for instance, I created just an intake stage where I have an organizer that will be sent for new clients with the online tag, then an organizer for the returning client with the online tag, then create tasks for offline clients, then an email welcome to the portal for new clients, an email how to complete an organizer for new clients, send an email to returning clients. And why did I did that? Because the idea of creating conditional automations is think about all of the type of clients that you could run into. So you could have clients that log into the portal. So normally we like to call them online clients. So this means that a new client that is an online will receive this organizer. If it's a returning client, an online client, then they will receive this organizer. So basically, you are creating a set of rules that will only apply if they have both of these tags or if they only have one. So, like a few moments back, when we were talking about what to do with those clients that are not logging into TaxZone for whatever reason, you could create a tag for this to scan the organizer. So you can assign this tag for someone on your team to whenever they receive the organizer, they will just upload the organizer into TaxDome, scan it. Once they have done that, they will click and continue. They'll click on complete, and that will make the job auto move. So basically, we're trying to think of all of those scenarios. And for instance, I also created, like on the engagement letter stage, I created two types of engagements. Ones that had the, let's just say, for instance, they selected the audit protect, and the ones that don't have audit protect. So you could have two types of engagement letters that will go based on the service that your client created. So you don't have to go manually and change it. You could have those templates based on the services that you provide or you offer to your clients, and also an offline. So if that client goes into your office and signs the engagement letter, you can also assign a task for somebody to scan that engagement letter, upload it into TaxDome. So this way, you will be able to manage your clients that are logging in and the clients that are not logging in. And also, like Fabiola mentioned, you can have stage conditions. So let's just say that a client of yours has a K1. So you could create a condition for the K1 clients. So the clients that have the K1 tag, they will go into this stage. If they don't have it, then they will jump into the next stage, continue review. But if they do have the K1 tag, they will go into here and have a placeholder until they have sent you that K1. Um, some scenario that is often forgotten is the Schedule C. So you can create a task for those Schedule C clients, so you don't forget that you need to ask that for them or prepare something for them. So whenever you're building a new client, you can always just make sure that the account tags are set. So whenever you create a pipeline like this that has a lot of conditional automations, those will be a way that you can trigger those services that you have added or you require. Like you could put Schedule C, K1, I don't know, you required to do something, you can do that, and it will only trigger if they have this task. If they have this tag. If they don't, then it will jump into the next stage. And how it will work, let me just go into the pipeline. And I will create just quickly a job right here.
And I want to add that you want to make sure that all of these tags that you set up, the the client has those tags in their account before you put them into the pipeline, right? Because you're triggering things to happen according to tags. But if they don't have any tags, then really nothing's going to happen um, when you add them to a job. Like, so in particular, right now Emilio's adding this job to this particular client, that client should have the tags needed for triggering, the automation, right? You can have some automations, right, Emilio, that say add this tag when they hit the stage. So you can say, change like the very, very last stage can say something like change their tag from new client to returning client. And that can be done automatically for you.
Exactly. And I added this account because I wanted to show you what happens if they don't have an email. Like I created purposely this account that doesn't have a contact link to it. But still, what will happen is that TaxDome will say, like, hey, these are the all of the automations that you have in this stage. It doesn't mean that all of them will trigger. It will only trigger those that match with the account tag. But if you're missing an email, I just wanted to show you that you will get an error here. So something just to help you to keep in mind that whenever you're adding a job and you may see something there, then it means like, hey, maybe I need to check up this account before I add that job into the pipeline. So I just added this new job right here. And based on the account tags that were created, so for instance, this one had all of these tags. So it was an online client with a new client. So it meant that this client received this organizer based on the tags that he had. Now I'm going to move this, and remember, let's not do this. Let's not drag and drop it manually, but I'm going to do it just for an example. So I'm going to send it back to InPrep, so you will be able to see how it gets triggered, the both of this task. And also you can say like, hey, you have a pending organizer. What do you want to do? For right now, I'll just say move it to the next stage. And now that I will move it, you will be able to see now that if I open this job, this client had the Schedule C tag. So it means that two tasks were triggered, one for the prep and one for the Schedule C. So this means that both of the tasks were triggered because it matches the criteria that we had on the pipeline. And if I complete both of these tasks, it will go into the stage, which is a conditional stage. Let me just do it very quickly. So as you can see, we have a K1 tag. So I'm just going to quickly complete this task, complete this task. And now the job will automatically move into the next stage, into the K1 stage. Oh, wait, I need to refresh. Sorry. But yeah, so basically this is how you will create your pipeline with all of those conditional stages, creating those rules that you want for each specific client, and think about all of those scenarios that you may have in your firm. So everything is in just one place. You don't have jobs that will fall through the cracks. Everything will stay in this pipeline. And oh yeah, I remember. Yeah, I had it's not moving because I had the organizer pending. Yeah, sorry about that.
There you go. That's a good way to do some testing, right? Like,
Yeah.
hey, why didn't it move to the next stage? Um, you always have to come back to the logic of, is there anything pending that I didn't finish, right? Because that will hinder a move to the next stage. And whenever you have those little triangles that are in any action, like those triangles, that means that there will be a move or a trigger once that is completed, right? So always look at that as well. Like we'll do some like testing like this tomorrow, and we'll
Yeah.
purposely build in some blockers there so you know how to manage, you know, why something didn't move, right? You have to always just have that logic. And it's not hard, everybody. All you have to do is look at, hey, it didn't move because I didn't complete something. Or maybe they don't have the right tag if I require tags for that stage or that action, right? Now I want to answer this question here. Would you recommend having a stage in a pipeline for a major stage in a pipeline, then having subtasks under that? Yes. So you have a stage and you can call it, e-filing. And that e-filing stage, well, your client really doesn't have to do anything anymore. They probably already signed whatever they needed to sign, and they did what they needed to do. Now you are officially e-filing that task under e-filing. You call the stage e-filing, you create a task and assign it to whoever in the team, whether it's a role or yourself or the assignee of the job. And that task will say, hey, e-file it. And all you have to do is hit complete whenever you finish that in your tax software. So you do that, you come back, you hit complete, and it'll auto move to the next stage, and you can email your client automatically on that next stage saying, hey, we've completed everything, you are good to go, right? Or if you need to wait for the e-file to be accepted or rejected, then you move to the next stage and then create another task and say, is it accepted or rejected? And once you complete that task, then it goes into that official email to your client that says, we've completed your stuff, right? So you don't need to worry about emailing your client at all. All you need to do is worry about that task that you need to finish. So yes, absolutely. Thank you for that question. Let me see if I can find some good questions here. And somebody asked, this is important to address. When you add tags, right, Emilio, you added, you set up all of these nice tags. Where do you add these tags? Because we can add tags to our tasks. We can add tags to our contacts, and we can add tasks to our accounts, and a handful of things in TaxDome. So could you answer that question?
Yeah, of course. So, like Fabiola mentioned, so you could add tags for a lot of things, but the ones that will trigger the conditional automations are the tags assigned to the account. The tags assigned for the task, for instance, will allow you to, in the task section, filter by that task. Like if you have multiple locations and you want to see the task from one location, there's a way that you can do that, and it will only show you those tasks. But the ones that trigger the conditional automations, that will be on the account level.
Yep, exactly. So you know how you open the job itself, and on the left-hand side, there's a whole bunch of tags. Those are the tags that the account has. Doesn't mean that the job itself has tags. We don't really have tags for jobs. We have tags for accounts. And when you modify stages, I guess you can call them tags for the pipeline, right? To trigger items. So you always want to make sure that the account has the tags that you need just to categorize that particular, account. So thank you for that question. Somebody said if we have, a list of tags, we don't really have something that we can forward you, but we can give you like examples, right? A lot of examples. It just depends on your business. If you want to, for example, add the word bookkeeping as a tag, perfect. You could do that. If you want to add the word French or Spanish or English because you have multilingual clients in your firm, then it's up to you. If you want to add, best practice that we've seen is adding a tag called 1040, 1120 for our Canadian firms, 10, T1, T2. or call it individual tax as a tag. The tags are really internal to you. We have a lot that are kind of general, that we showcase, but they're really up to you. And the colors that you can choose, they're up to you. You want, your 1040 to be bright yellow, then so be it. That probably is, the best thing that you want to do. It's eye catching and your team identifies it. So it's up to you. But again, we can always give you the best practice, but in reality, the tags up to you completely. Everything that we use, you can duplicate it, our examples. So yeah, by all means.
And to answer an earlier question, tags can be assigned through the organizer. So you can have
Right.
so you can have a yes or no answer. It can, change, if it says, do you have a 1098, and the person answers yes. So you can have a 1098 tag populate on their account. Or, if they say no, you can remove a 1098 tag if they'd had one previously. So your organizer can trigger all those tags for you to help put those tags on your account so that you don't have to do it manually, and it saves you so much time and so much effort. So yes, that is something that you can do. So please take the time on your organizer. Take time on your organizer. It will, because that time that you take will save you time in the long run of everything else.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's kind of like this underrated feature that we have in our organizers. So if somebody says yes or no on a question, you can say tag the account this if they answer no. Or if they answer yes, tag the account this. So you can be creative in using the organizer, right? Uh, did you get divorced this year? If they say yes, then you can tag the account divorced, right? For some reason, maybe you want that and you want to understand which, handful of clients got divorced. So you can maybe create a new account for the husband because you're going to handle them separately now. Whatever it may be, you may be able to use organizers for automatic tagging. That way they can automatically go into a specific condition on the next stage. So if they answered no and they go to the next stage, then something specific is going to happen for that client. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. That's super super helpful in many ways. All right, and I want to answer this very last question here. How do you skip from the preparation stage to the manager review stage with a missing information stage between? Currently, if we complete preparation, it goes into missing, and then review, even though there's nothing missing. All right. So the reason it goes into missing is because that account probably has a missing info tag, right? So again, I'll repeat that. That stage, if you copied the actual webinar from the marketplace, it's already kind of set up for you, and you can delete those stages, by the way. The missing info and the extension needed, those are in case you want to utilize a full stage for them.
And we're going to
Otherwise,
show you how here in just a minute.
yeah, you can mitigate that by what Katie's going to demo for us and just completely get rid of those stages. But we'll show you how to do that in a second. Maybe what Katie's going to show you solves your problem. But the thing here is that if that missing info stage has a condition on the whole stage, right up at the top, it says only if they have missing info tag should they sit on the stage. If not, skip all the way to manager review. So just consider that client, their account has a missing info tag. So you want to delete that before moving to the next stage. Somebody must have added it at one point. So you might want to delete that, and then you should be good to go. All right, Katie. So we covered a whole bunch of things, right? We covered, how to get into roles, how to clean up a little bit the pipeline, and how to catch errors. And we'll talk more about that tomorrow. But we definitely did a little bit of a deeper dive with, these kinds of automations with triggers. Now we want to talk about something very, very specific that it pertains to this question. And Katie, I'll give you the mic so you can take this over and show us how to solve this issue.
All right, sounds good. So we are going to go over how to work on job statuses. Let me pull up my correct screen and we will get right into it. So here we have our pipeline. As you can see, we just have a handful of stages, nothing crazy, just exactly what we need to process a tax return. As we were just talking about, some other pipelines have some extra stages that are, waiting for more info or extension needed. But you can actually get rid of those stages by using these new statuses. If you go ahead and click edit on your pipeline, and you can go ahead and click on job statuses. And here we are going to look at them. We can edit them. We can add some. These are what you start with if you've added the pipeline from the marketplace. Or you can add your own. So right now we have extension filed, and information missing. And then for the information missing, I even added a task. This is chase client for missing information. So we're going to go ahead and look at how these work. So we're going to go back to stages. As you can see, my stages, again, they look the same as everybody else's do. We're going to go ahead and go back to the actual pipeline. And then we're going to go into our job card. So say our automated guy needs an extension, okay? Instead of moving him to a special stage in our pipeline, we are going to go ahead and use our job status. So we're going to go ahead and click active, and we're going to go ahead and put extension. Now we could have, we can create a task here that says file an extension or anything like that. And then we're going to go ahead and click save and exit. And as you can see, it has turned his job card an orange peach color. This is just to kind of grab your attention so you know that something is going on with this job. You can kind of ignore it for the moment, but also you can see exactly what's going on with it to take place of having that extra stage in your pipeline. I used this my last tax season, and it was so helpful because we didn't have to try and remember where these jobs had been and try and move them back to the correct stages. And then by doing that, we lost track of how long they'd been in those stages, like which order, who had been in there the longest. And so it was super, super helpful. You can also use extension files. So like if you are filing extensions all along the way, you can see which ones you've already filed an extension for. And then information missing. If we click on this one, we're going to assign the job to the task assignee. So we're going to go ahead and click change status. And then we're going to click save and exit. Now, if we go to his account, you can see here that I have Chase client. So if I go ahead and mark this complete and save, and then we go back to our pipeline, while it thinks for a second, you can see that he has been returned back to an active status. Now, right now, we're still waiting for the initial batch of tax documents, so he didn't move forward. But if this task had been completed and the other task had been completed, it would have moved this job forward to the next stage. So this is again how you can get rid of those extra stages by using the job statuses, and that way you don't have things going into a stage that don't need to go there. Um, you can use these job statuses with a task, and then once that task is complete, it will move forward for you. Um, or you just have the jobs auto move because the initial items have been completed. And they save you a lot of time. They, because they turn colors, they kind of bring attention to what's going on. And they kind of save the place of that job so that you know the priority. So hey, they got back to you. Um, you know, their job card is white again, and you know that you can go ahead and take care of their information because they've been sitting there longer than other people. Um, so it just kind of saves you time, saves them time from having to start all over again, unless you choose to make them wait, which we did often just because they just basically restarted their whole time frame. You know, you can choose how you want to do that.
All right. And somebody asked, is there an article that we can read more about job statuses? Absolutely. There, you type in job status up at the help center, up at the top. Every time that you see help up there, please click on it. We'll do a deep dive on whatever topic that you need. We'll have short video clips on there if you need to see exactly how this is set up, and how Katie kind of did step by step. The help articles also do the step by step for you. They're written out, and there's also short clips of videos if you ever need to refer to that. The help center is just amazing, so feel free to utilize that. But pretty simple to use. Now, to answer, going back to that previous question of how do I skip the missing info, stuff like that. In this case, Katie deleted those stages. You don't really need them because you can use statuses now, right? And whether they are in the in review stage or the e-signature stage, doesn't matter where, you can add a status. So the status that she had like 3 statuses, right? 3 or 4. You can add 20 statuses. And they can be whatever you want to name them because your business just has different scenarios. Maybe it doesn't have to be a tax return pipeline. It can be anything. It can be a payrolling pipeline, and you just have a million different statuses, right? That you want, like they're stuck on that stage because of X and Y.
And clients will not see these statuses, so that
Exactly.
also helps. You can name them whatever you want. You can put a description with them to just kind of help you know exactly what they are. Um, clients do not see any of this.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. I think that question again comes up over and over again. Like, can my clients see any of this? No, they could not. You have full power of the visibility of what they get. So they can only see their account name when they log in and anything that they need to complete. So remember, tasks in a pipeline, they're for you and your team. And something that your client needs to complete, you can't call it a task, but a signature, for example, is something that your client needs to complete. I don't like calling it tasks because I don't want to confuse the verbal jargon, with what we call it in TaxDome. So tasks are for you and your team, and a signature or reviewing something or approving something, that's something that the client needs to do. All right, great. So Thank you for that demo. There is a status that the client is able to see, and we'll talk about that tomorrow during the testing. We'll do a little bit of a testing, like get a live job and go through stages, look for errors, correct them, and I'll talk a little bit more about client-facing statuses, right? We already did that before when we did a testing before. Is my client getting the right status? But how do I set that up stage to stage, right? Do I want it to change every single stage, or do I want it to stay the same? So we'll talk about job client facing statuses, and that's why we call them that, because that's really what they only see. They see their account name and the client facing status. So the status is not f- facing only the team, it's a client facing status. So at least our titles of some of these features are pretty comprehensive, right? All right, so
I want to go ahead and answer this question since I did
oh
mention
yeah,
it. Can you please show us how to develop organizers to populate tags? So I'm going to just really quickly show how you would do that.
sure.
Even give me just a second. So I'm here. When you are looking at your organizer, you would pick whatever questions you need to. And so on something like this, you would click on the dial. And down here, you have the option of tagging. So if I turn this on, so you had, here was your question. Dependent has identity pin. So I could say yes. I could put my tag as, IP pin. And then I could remove one that says IP pin if they don't have one. I don't think I have that set up in here. Yeah, I don't have one set up here, and it'll take me a minute to get it set up. But that's kind of one example of how you can set that up. So that, is a quick example of how you can set it up. Another thing I've done is just for all the different documents they've had. If they have a Schedule C, I would do the same thing. I would tag it with do a tag for a Schedule C. So they've got
Yeah, it's a
question
really good tag
here.
to have.
Yeah, so usually you start kind of at the beginning, and your tags are going to be at the beginning, and then as they answer more detailed questions, you shouldn't need as many, because they answered most of the yes or no questions, up further in their organizer. So it's very simple. It's just, it can be time consuming as you are working through it, just making sure that you're catching everything that you want to have a tag for. So anyways, I hope that answered that question.
Yeah, I think it did for sure. Now, I want to address another question. It's a really good question, probably really common here for a lot of our viewers. Let me maximize this question. Do we recommend a pipeline perform, maybe? Like, for example, a 1040 pipeline and 1065 pipeline of common dates. Um, this is up to you. Um, that's why we have tags, because if you'd like all of your tax returns to be all in one pipeline, whether it's corporate or individual, you can use tags, right? So if they hit stage one, you can say, if they have a 1040 tag, send them this engagement letter. If they have a 1065 tag, send them this different engagement letter for businesses. So you can have everything in one pipeline, or you can have separate pipelines. Maybe in your mind you feel more organized separating them, because you want to keep track of business jobs separate from individual jobs, and that's how your brain works. Then great. If not, you can have them all in one pipeline because they all fall under that same category of tax return. Essentially, the process is the same. The difference is that they'll receive different engagement letters and, the organizer's probably different, but essentially they need to sign, they need to pay, there needs to be an e-filing. That's why a lot of clients just use one pipeline, but by all means use two. I couldn't say the best practice for now because it just depends on how you want to be organized. But if you're a little bit more advanced, I feel like with the use of TaxDome, eventually you probably want to just use one pipeline for all tax returns. That might be easy unless you really have you have 1,000 business returns and 1,000 individuals. Maybe you want to have a separate pipeline for them, right? So you're not confused and so that your view of jobs is not cluttered once they're in different stages, right? You might have 100 clients on stage one, 50 clients on stage two. And if you mix them with businesses, that might multiply. So, but good question. Definitely up to you if you feel that you want to be organized with different multiple pipelines. Now, I suggest that once you finish that 1040 pipeline or that T1 for our Canadian firms or whatever pipeline, doesn't matter if it's tax return or not. And you want to do something similar, but for businesses, right? Then when you complete that pipeline, duplicate it and then just tweak it a little bit so that the right engagement letter gets sent out, the right organizer gets sent out. So you don't have to work on another pipeline from scratch, right? Duplicate a really well-made pipeline and then just reuse that. So that's a tip that I always give. You can duplicate all the pipelines as many times as you want, rename them, and you don't have to work as hard to create more pipelines if you already really worked hard on one. So really, really
And
good question.
please know any questions you have. We are going to have a special post in the community. You will receive the link with your emails this afternoon when you receive a link to this recording and transcript. So you can go in and on that post ask any of the questions you have related to this boot camp, and we will be in there asking or answering your questions, or at least I will be in there answering your questions. So again, please feel free to come in and ask any questions you have related to this boot camp, and I will do my best to get those answered for you.
Yes, thank you very much for bringing that up. Our community is great, everybody. If you haven't joined it, join it. If you haven't decided to, use TaxDome, head on over, join TaxDome, join that community. It's just all of you sharing best tips and tricks and best practices, right?
An
So
experience, asking
yeah,
questions, it really is a community, and of your peers, and the TaxDome team doing their best to help you out and support you. So it's open to you guys always.
perfect. Well, we're coming to the end of today's webinar, and I just want to thank everybody for assisting today. And we will have more, tomorrow. We will definitely, make sure that we cover as many questions as we can. Again, we'll have more hyper focus on Q&A on the very last session on Thursday. Right, so make sure you tune in for that. Have your questions ready. Hopefully we're answering as we are demoing. Hopefully our team answers the questions for you as you are, watching this. So again, you'll probably, get some pop-ups here, and you'll have a survey for those that are here live. So please answer those. Really, really helpful. I really appreciate your feedback always to make things a little bit better and have you have the best experience that you can. So thank you so much, everybody, and we will see you tomorrow. And
You
thank
guys
you, Emilio and Katie. Thank you for
have a great rest of your day or night.
Yes, wherever you are watching from. Thank you.
Thank you.